Welcome to Frameworks. This is a place for coaches who want more than just reps and sets. We dig into principles, philosophy, and stories that help you coach with clarity, design with purpose, and to keep chasing mastery. Today, we're digging into something that sits underneath every program that you've ever written, and that is beliefs. More specifically, how beliefs turn into actions and how actions quietly shape a client's results over months and even years. So if you've ever had a client who says the right things but doesn't follow through, this episode is for you. So now let's get into it. Today we're going to lay out a framework that can help us to get clients to move forward, to do things. We talk about a lot this concept that coaching is actually all about behavior change, convincing someone or making someone believe that they should change their behaviors over time. So that is so much more than just prescribing X and say, hey, go out and do X on Monday, do Y on Tuesday, so on and so forth. We have to really dig in if we want to actually impact their behavior and for us to be able to help them change that. Most coaches' problems are not programming problems. They're actually underlying belief problems. And if we really think about that, we can think about, what sits inside of beliefs and how do those influence the things that we do on a day-by-day basis. And that's the framework that I'm going to talk about today. It's this pyramid, and at the bottom of this pyramid are beliefs, okay? What is ingrained in us as people? And then at the very top of this pyramid, it's actions. What are we doing on a day-by-day basis? Some would call these like motivation, some would call these habits. No matter what you call it, we're acting, we're doing things or we're not doing things on a day-by-day basis. And it all stems from our underlying beliefs. So today I'm just going to talk about everything in between and talk about how we can think about beliefs and how we can try to understand our clients' beliefs. So the prescriptions that we're giving on a day-by-day basis, we might end up in a place where our clients actually do those things. And it's also important to understand that people don't act randomly. They act in ways that make sense to them. So if you want to change what someone does consistently, you have to understand what they believe, and you have to understand why they believe what they believe, which we'll get into a little bit more later. And this is where real coaching starts. It starts well before we actually put back squats and bicep curls in the training program or prescribe protein, carbs, and fats in the nutrition program. Let's get started at the foundation of this pyramid, and that is belief and beliefs themselves. So we have to understand what beliefs are and where they come from. Beliefs are shaped by a lot of different variables. It could be upbringing, it could be culture, it could be past experiences, it could be praise and punishment. And what I mean by that is what someone was rewarded for in the past probably is going to influence the things that they believe and not believe. If someone grew up in an environment where productivity equaled worth and value, they didn't choose that belief, it was trained into them. Okay, so that is something that we have to understand, and the art is recognizing that. And we can recognize that through asking the right questions. So when you hear a client say, if I'm not producing, I'm failing, that belief didn't start with fitness. That probably goes well beyond what you put in the training program. That's probably ingrained somewhere. So we have to really dig into just that statement and that thought, and we have to be okay with just asking more questions. Okay, so if someone says, if I'm not producing, I'm failing, maybe just ask them a simple question that starts with, well, can you expand on that a little bit more? What do you mean by that? Where does that come from, right? Like, you can kind of see where I'm going here. We're starting to dig in and ask a little bit more questions there. So once we understand, where someone's belief systems are, we have to be really careful and not trying to intrude and just say like, hey, I want to change everything that you believe. So the means to an end, you doing this program that I wrote for you is more successful and you're just more compliant to this thing. We have to understand that, like I just said, beliefs don't start with fitness. Fitness might just expose those beliefs. And this matters because you are not coaching in a vacuum. So I think that's super important to understand. You're coaching into a belief system that already exists, and we have to respect that. But then we also have to work with that, right? So we have to recognize it first, we respect it, and then we work with it. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about what does it actually mean to work within that belief system, and dare I say, intrude some things inside of that belief system that we think are good for people, right? And these are simple things like, why ought you take care of yourself? Why does it matter how you feel? Why should you work hard and focus on recovering from that hard work so you could do it again tomorrow? Just things like that, variables like that. So I'm not talking about an intrusion on someone's belief system and completely shifting, their belief system upside down. It's just an intrusion in terms of like, I want you to start believing that you should take better care of yourself. And it's like, that shouldn't be that challenging of a thing to do, because that's why these clients are working with us. They're working with us because there's a problem and they want that problem to be solved. The second consideration are our perceptions. Okay, so perception is belief in real time. Okay, so beliefs shape how people interpret or interact with the world, but that interpretation is perception in itself. So two people can look at the same hour on their calendar and see completely different things. That would be person A and person B's perception of that hour on their calendar. Okay, so let me dig into that a little bit more. So one person sees this is time to invest in my health. Another sees this is time stolen from work. So all that is a perception. Someone, and we're, again, we have to continue to go back down to the foundation of what we're talking about today, and that's belief, right? So the person that says, this is time to invest in my health, what do we think they believe, right? They probably believe that it's important for them to invest in their health. And the person that says, this is time stolen away from work, that person probably believes that their work, their vocation, productivity, is above and is more important than their health if they're measuring those two things with that same hour. Something that's really important for us to understand is the difference between these two things is not discipline, it's perception. Okay, so let's not go wrong with that. So I think it's easy for us as coaches to say, like, you decided to, work instead of do your training program or the training that I wrote for you today. You are undisciplined. Maybe not. Maybe they're very disciplined, but they're just prioritizing other things based on that foundational belief system, if you get what I'm saying there. So the difference is not just discipline, it's also how we perceive things, how we perceive that hour of time that we have on our calendar, and how we eventually make the decision, which is coming up next, what to do with that hour on the calendar. And perception is simply belief applied to the moment. So that's that hour. I'm going to keep going back to this hour example, right? We see that hour, we say that, hey, this is a great time for me to invest into my health. I want to feel better. I want to look better, whatever the case is. We are taking that belief and we're applying it in real time based on the perception and how we're perceiving that hour. As a coach, if you don't understand how your client perceives training, you will completely misinterpret their behavior every single time. And we talk about this a lot in the OPEX method when it starts to come to like things like simple things like exercise selection and program design. The way that someone perceives exercise A versus exercise B actually matters a lot, assuming that exercise A and exercise B would get us to the goal, or we think it'll get that client to the goal, the same goal, it'll get them to the same end, right? We take those perceptions into consideration, and if there's a preference in that perception, let's just go with their preference, right? All things being equal, and both of those things are gonna lead them to where we're trying to take them. So as a coach, we have to understand how our clients perceive training, nutrition, habits that we're giving them, lifestyle pieces that we're giving them. And if we misinterpret those things, we are going to just miss, right? We talk a lot about compliance, and we should strive to have great compliance with our clients. If we're not taking in their perceptions and their beliefs into consideration, I think that's going to be a big miss if the outcome is we want them to just do the thing day after day after day. Up until this point, we've covered beliefs and we've covered perception. Okay, now we're going upstream a little bit, and now we're going to talk about decisions. Okay, decisions are made to stay congruent with those beliefs. Okay, so we have to make the decision to do something or to not do something before we do it, or we don't do it, if that makes sense. So it's an internalizing decision to do the physical action or not do the physical action. And we have to understand that people make decisions that protect those beliefs, those foundational beliefs. They make those decisions to protect their beliefs, not their goals, but their beliefs. So that's super, super important to understand. You cannot say, hey, this goal is more important than everything that's in your being in terms of your belief system and what you believe, right? Those things have to be congruent with one another. So if someone believes that work equals value, when work gets busy, training is going to completely disappear. They're not going to have time for it, okay? So again, recognize it, understand it. You don't always have to change it, but just recognizing it can arm you to set that client up for better successes. And not because they don't care about their health sometimes, right? Like sometimes someone can, make that decision to prioritize work over whatever their training is that you gave them for the day. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't care about their health. But because skipping training keeps their belief system intact, if that foundational belief system is still like alive and well, that work equals value. Okay. And this is really, really important to understand. And, that's why we always use this term like jockeying for position. We're always jockeying for position. It doesn't mean that we're taking a position and we're overcoming everything that's in that belief system. We're just trying to fit it in. We have to fit it in while understanding and recognizing where people are. From the outside, this can look like inconsistency. Remember that term that I talked about before, compliance? So compliance is low, so we automatically jump to this person is really inconsistent. But from the inside, from your client's perspective, it could actually feel like integrity, right? Because they're like, me getting work done, being productive is extremely important. It's the most important thing to me, right? For example, when they say, hey, I don't have time to do the program design that you gave me, but instead I'm going to go and do some productive things that just have to get done because I have to hit deadlines. This is integrity from their standpoint. So that's really important to recognize as well. They are acting in alignment with what they believe is right. So we're talking about, okay, well, how do we jockey for that position? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, it's just really important to understand that we have these foundational belief systems, people have perceptions, and people make decisions to do things or to not do things based on that foundational belief system, based on the perceptions of the external world, and lining it up or misaligning it with that belief system, and then they make that decision. Now we're at the very top of this pyramid finally. Okay, so now we're talking about actions, the things that we're actually doing. Actions reveal the truth faster than words ever can. Okay, so here's a coaching rule that I think it's important to understand and maybe to just consider when we're working with our clients and we're consulting, because I'm assuming that we're all actually having conversations and consulting with the people that we're working with. And that's actions tell the truth, but words tell the story. And what I mean by that is if you ask someone to lay out their day, what do you do on a day-by-day basis every single day? And they say, I wake up at this time, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Those actions tell us the truth. Those are their priorities, okay? Those are the things that they prioritize enough to actually get done on a day-by-day basis. The words that they're telling you, maybe it was prior to you asking that question, well, this is what I want to do. This is what, maybe someone says like, this is what I do on a day-by-day basis. Without actually the truth in front of them and you actually asking them, well, I want you to lay out, what a typical Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday looks like for you. And those actions actually tell the truth. Those words are probably just telling a story of what they want to be true or what they're aspiring to be true. So I think that that's really, really important. Always try to get to some kind of objectivity. In this case, objectivity is what are your actions? What are you doing on a daily basis? Someone can say that they value their health, but their actions will tell you if they actually believe that. Okay. And, a really simple example of this is like, someone comes in and they're like, like, I'm a really healthy person. I live a healthy lifestyle. I really pay attention to what I eat, my sleep, activity throughout the day. And you're like, okay, I want you to lay out a typical day. They're like, well, I wake up at this time. I eat food while I drive to work. Now that I think about it, on some days I get in some physical activity, but other days I'm just really, really busy. But don't worry, because the days that I get physical activity in, I go really, really hard. So I'm kind of making up for it, right? So it's like, their actions aren't matching up with what they told you they're doing on a daily basis. And with clients in general, if week after week a client is going against what they said that they wanted to do, continue to dig deeper with them. Okay, we have to ask clarifying questions. It's not all about like, I'm on my throne and I'm telling you to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, hey, I think doing X, Y, and Z would be really helpful for you. How can we fit this into your schedule? How can we make this a priority for you? Okay, if you have a client and week after week, cycle after cycle, they're prioritizing, I'm just going to stick with work. I don't want to demonize work, but they're opening their laptop instead of going to the gym. That action is not accidental. It's ingrained, right? Like there's something in that belief system that's making them make that decision to open up that laptop and dig into 2 hours of work instead of going to the gym for 45 minutes. And when we start to see those things that are contradicting what people told us or what people said that they want to do, those things are beliefs made visible. As a coach, our job is not to shame that and be like, don't do that. It's just to simply, number one, recognize, number two, understand, and number three, try to figure out a game plan to introduce what you're trying to get them to do. Just because I'm talking to a bunch of coaches right now, that's usually, I want you to, exercise. I want you to move outside of the gym. I want you to, eat enough food, eat quality food, not eat too much food, whatever the thing is. I want you to prioritize your sleep. We have to understand, based on their belief systems and the things that they're prioritizing right now, how can we fit this into their day by day? That's the framework, but I want to spend a minute and just talk about like, why does this framework matter? Okay, so this is where most coaches go wrong, in my opinion. They try to fix action with pressure. Okay, so more accountability, more reminders, more structure, but pressure doesn't change belief. It just creates resistance. Okay, and I think that that's really, really important to recognize and understand. If you want durable behavior change, belief has to shift first. And belief does not change through lectures or saying like, you ought to do this, you should do this is going to get you closer to your goals. Obviously, a lot of those things, a lot of those points are going to be inside of the conversations that we have with clients, but it changes through experience. So you're probably like, what does that mean, right? Sometimes we could tell someone, lifting weights is going to make you feel good. And they're like, cool, that sounds good, right? It's like, it just seems so far away, they don't even know what you mean by that. But what if you said, lifting weights makes you feel good, and then in the back of your mind, you're like, I need to allow them to experience that, okay? So maybe it is a small pocket of time where you're like, hey, over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, I want you to commit to me, even though this is like backroom talk now, even though this isn't in their belief system, we're just asking them to just do it, right? Just to like, quote unquote, obey, right? It's like, I want you to do these things for 2 to 3 weeks. And then after they do these things, and if your theory is true, like, I want you to lift weights 3 times per week because I think you're actually going to have more energy, that should come into fruition. You can now ask those questions. Well, how are you feeling now? How are you feeling, this week versus 4 weeks ago? What have you noticed? Things like that. So that behavior change can happen through the things that they're experiencing based on what you're giving them. So how do we as coaches impact someone's belief system? That is a great question, and I don't think that there's a really simple answer to that, but I think there's some like good principles that would sit underneath it. Okay, so number one, I think that we don't argue or convince beliefs away. We design experiences that gently challenge them, kind of what we just walked through, right? So instead of saying you need to prioritize yourself, you help a client train consistently for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like we talked about, and then you ask them, what did you notice about your energy at work? Instead of saying health matters more than productivity, you let them experience better focus, better sleep, and better output after training. And then you ask those clarifying questions. Well, how do you feel? What have you noticed over the last X amount of weeks, so on and so forth? I think it's really important to understand that beliefs follow those experiences. Our role is to engineer the evidence. Okay, so that is design, right? Like that's us actually artfully crafting these experience or engineering these experience so that those experiences can be the evidence. Now, when you start thinking about applying these principles and these frameworks with your clients, I just want to talk about a couple things to think about in that application process. Number one, listen for belief language. That's when people say, I should, I can't afford to, I've always been, right? Those are just some examples of like, ooh, okay. When people say that, don't just like ignore it and move on, like dig in, right? I should do X. Why do you think you should do X? I can't afford to do X. Oh, wow, that's interesting. What does that mean? Like, what is the cost to do X? What do you mean you can't afford it? I've always been, right? X, right? It's like, well, how is that working out for you? And don't say it in like a condescending way. I'm not saying that, but just asking those clarifying questions is really, really powerful for people. Next, it's watch actions. I'm not saying ignore what people are saying, but watch actions and put more oomph into the things that people do than the things that people say. Okay, so patterns matter more than intentions. So actions matter more than intentions. I could have great intentions, but if I'm not actually playing those things out in real life, those intentions mean nothing, right? You're going to know me by the works that I do. Okay, so I think that that's a really good thing to kind of have in your toolbox and to think about that. The next thing is design small, repeatable wins. Beliefs don't shift from huge efforts usually. It's small, like I want you to consistently do this, compound it over time. Confidence builds, small wins turn into big wins, right? So design those small and repeatable wins. And this is going to shift consistency if we're able to do this correctly and appropriately. And then finally, reflect. Don't always think that you have to correct. So ask questions that help clients connect actions to outcomes. Okay. I think that is, if you take something away from this, it's like you have to get your clients to notice, to understand. Okay. And that's why I keep saying, ask questions, ask clarifying questions, ask your client what they're doing on a day-by-day basis, have them answer that question for you, write it on a piece of paper, write it on a whiteboard so they can actually see it. People are pretty smart. Most people are pretty smart, right? It's like when they see those things, when they hear their answers, that can be that connection mechanism. Those aha moments sometimes happen as we speak because we're thinking about something, we say that thing, and then we reflect on what we said. We're like, oh, is that actually what I think? Is that what I believe? Is this what I'm actually doing? So on and so forth. So let's reflect. Let's not always try to correct. Okay, so to close this out, guys, I think that there's a few things that are just really important and worth restating. Number one, beliefs shape our perceptions. Perceptions drive our decisions, and those decisions that we make or don't make turn into actions and what we actually do. Okay, so after digesting this and thinking about, okay, like how can I use this framework or the principles of this framework with my clients, just think about that. Think about at the very top of the pyramid, what are your people doing or what are they not doing? Okay, and then work your way down or reverse engineer your way down. And I guarantee you are going to unveil some things in their belief system, but it has to be a communication. There has to be communication with you and your client talking through these things. It's one thing to notice, but it's a completely other thing to confirm our noticings, and I think that that's really important. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you spending some time with me, thinking through the beliefs to actions framework. Think about this with your clients, apply it with your clients. And dare I say, think about it for yourself, right? Like how do these principles apply with you, what you're doing on a day-by-day basis? And how do your belief systems, the things that are at that foundation, how are those impacting what you decide to do and not to do? If I am confident about one thing, I think that growth is probably somewhere in that belief system of yours. Growth, continuing to learn, so on and so forth, because you're spending time listening to this conversation. So I'm confident that that's there for you. So thank you, appreciate it, and I will see you guys soon.